audience. Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael Haas. I hope you guys are all doing well today, but I have a feeling that by the time you leave here, you might leave with a little bit of concern because something I got to tell you guys about. So in 2018, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, they came to a very fair conclusion that in the next 12 years, the global society is going to have to make a major policy change as far as energy reform is considered. And they say after that, any kind of combating we're going to do to help the sustainability of Earth is going to be a losing fight. It can be compared to a JV football team playing against a professional athletic club. But little background about me is I worked in the oil and gas industry in prior years, but I've been studying in college for the last couple of years, and it's really opened my eyes to the negative impact that fossil fuels has had on climate change. That aside, with me having a 6-year-old daughter at home, really stoked a fire in my heart. See, I wish to preserve my legacy through her well-being, and it really motivated me to open the eyes of the public so we can maybe accelerate an energy policy reform for future generations that follow us. I know there's lots of stipulations economically and politically that have really thwarted the energy policy reform as of late, but truly I believe that this mortal threat, it can be combated. So anyway, we're going to talk about climate change. We're going to talk about the ways that it inevitably can and will destroy society. And we'll talk about the reform that needs to be made. We need to do this in solidarity. By doing this, not only will humanity be able to survive, but we will also be able to advance. And then after that, we can look back on the work that we can implement, and we can be proud of ourselves for the footprint that we've left on society that will not only advance technology, but it will also advance profitability, and it will ensure our future. So most people, they're pretty vaguely aware of climate change and the way that it can absolutely crumble society. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about why and exactly why it can. So the science behind it is greenhouse gases are elements like carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is one of the main emissions that comes from fossil fuels. What it does is it creates a layer against the atmosphere, so when the energy from the sun hits the surface of the earth, it will bounce back into the atmosphere of carbon dioxide, and then it will trap all the energy in. If you look at a planet like Venus, it's so hot and it's uninhabitable. It's because there's a large amount of carbon dioxide in Venus. So we don't want the earth to get that way. And if you take a look at these graphs right here, these are provided by NASA, and they will show a very strong correlation between the carbon emissions since 2006 and the global mean temperature raising in that same amount of time. The United States Energy Information Administration, they quoted simply that it is extremely likely that human influence has been dominant in the cause of greenhouse gases and global warming since the mid-20th century. So you know about the causes, but we'll just talk about the effects and what it does. So with the raising global mean temperature and the raising amount of CO2 emissions, first off, we'll see a rising of the sea level. If all the polar ice caps were to melt, we could see up to an 8-foot increase in sea level. I'll show you what it might look like in a certain city. This is Long Beach, California, and this is what the projection would look like if it was under 8 feet of water. See, the United States Navy did a census conduction, and they said that over 80% of the world's population lives next to the sea. Actually, some Pacific islands would actually be completely wiped off the planet. Places like Indonesia, which is one of the top 10 countries as far as the population goes, would be completely wiped out. Not only that, but there would be a lot of catastrophic weather with all of the temperature changes. We've been seeing more and more Category 5 hurricanes come into the Pacific Gulf and onto the eastern seaboard lately, and that can be attributed to the warmer ocean temperature that's along the tropics. Aside from that, I mean, here in Colorado, we would see some melting snow caps in our beautiful Rocky Mountains. When these snow caps melt, not only will it affect commerce for things like skiing and whitewater rafting, but that is where we get our fresh water from. There would be a fresh water crisis. People could perhaps lose their lives because of it. And one very little known fact is that the raising sea temperature and the amount of carbon dioxide that the sea is absorbing, it's messing up the physiology of marine life. Fish are not understanding how to survive. They're losing their sense of smell. They're losing their ability to find a safe haven to multiply. And with this will totally crumble the food chain, and it'll ruin the ecosystem as we know it. So you know that there's many consequences caused by this one thing, but I know there's concerns about economy, but they can be resolved along with our ability just to save humanity through this reduction of greenhouse gases. So there's a few things that these policies will help. I know that there's a challenge in transitioning to energy technology from fossil fuels to renewable resources. But the thing is, there's tons of natural resources around here. People say it might not be sunny somewhere, or it might not be windy, but any place where it's not sunny, it could be windy. Any place where it's not sunny or windy, there's something under the ground. It's called geothermal energy. We can tap into the heat of the earth, and then we can power our whole society through these natural resources without emitting any carbon emissions. These transitions are practical. Like I said, there's resources in every region. I know there's lots of concerns amongst tradesmen for oil and gas industry and the coal industry, but the fact of the matter is that there are resources that can replace that in every region where these people are concerned. So there's lots of economic and financial schematics that we really need to implement in order to make this happen. An economist named Chacon, she said that tax policies, they will usher the want to change amongst investors, utilities, drillers, all of that. The thing about the policies today, at least in the United States, is they're very short term. They're almost tentative. So that scares the utility companies, it scares the drillers, it scares the investors from wanting to make the commitment to switch to green energy because of the potential expiration of these short-term policies. So if we do enact very long-term and concrete policies, then we will be able to convince these investors to stick with a transition to green energy. So our society, we've settled into these antiquated policies and these forms of energy, and we could definitely achieve economic comfort and sustainability, and it can be preserved through this humane transition to green energy. So now we feel kind of powerless over what bigwig politicians do, but in most of the world it's a democracy, and the democracy starts with the ground level. It starts with the general public. That's me and that's you. That's all of us small-time people. If we can all open our eyes to the detriment that fossil fuels is causing, then we can get our congressmen, we can get our senators, we can get our presidents, we can get them to stick with a firm policy. In our modern day society, they have quote-unquote passed the buck on from one generation to another, saying that the issues of the present are the problems of the future. But together right here, we have a chance to reverse this. We have a chance to preserve the sustainability of Earth, and we have a chance to change the political trends of society moving forward. So this issue, like I said, it can be fixed with sensitivity, it can be fixed with diplomacy and mutualism. And it doesn't have to be met with contempt and admonishment. Together we can benefit from this change. And we can pass that advantage on to our predecessors that follow us. It's really in conclusion, obviously this is an issue that has several obstacles in its way. We have a lot of opposing opinions, but I think we can make this transition that benefits our present and future. I think we are really running out of time, but if we all join together, then we will be uncontested to prompt a unanimous change in global energy policy. And the results will not even just reverse, the way that society acts today, but we'll be a generation of valor that will be remembered forever. So, really, the trend of demise, you can see it. You see it in all the Hollywood movies, everything that's written about. We can see right here that by 2050, if we act right now, we can source all of our energy out of solar, wind, geothermal, waves. Create 52 million jobs. It's twice as many as the jobs will be lost. So of course we'll be able to ensure sustainability or profitability or economic comfortability. Like I said, the trend of demise, it's exhibited in movies, it's exhibited in books. We see it all too often. Just have the, that really pessimistic outlook of the future, like in movies like WALL-E and The Matrix. They just paint a picture of humans ruining America. I think together, if we just open each other's eyes and change energy policy from the ground up, then we can change those pessimistic outlooks into outlooks of utopian society, movies that will be written about a perfect future. Anyway, sorry if I stoked you guys' heart too much. It's something I was very passionate about. I really appreciate your time. I hope you leave with something valuable, and I hope you pass it on to your friends. Thanks a lot, and have a great night.